Hi Gina.
Hi Ione. Hi everyone. I'm Gina, the senior editor of Polyester.
And I'm Ione, the founding editor-in-chief of Polyester, and this is the Polyester Podcast, a feminist pop culture podcast dissecting the discourse on a weekly basis.
Before we start, we've just relaunched our membership platform to include loads of new perks, including exclusive, podcast-centered ones. We're now offering exclusive video episodes, secret mini episodes, and even episodes centered on what you want us to talk about across different tier options. Go check it out at the link in our description. And if you haven't yet, please make sure to like, rate, subscribe, and review. Do we have any reviews, Ione?
We do. This is from Apple Podcasts, 5 stars by Goodnight Cassie. Laughs and insight. These girls give me the best sleepover conversation. Makes me laugh and also stops the conservative aunt trying to grow in me down in her tracks. Love their nitpicking of culture and also how candid their opinions are. Love them even when I have the hardest time understanding what they say because of the accent, which I love, and there is a charm in deciphering and learning new slang. All the love from Mexico.
Thank you. Good night, Cassie. That's really cute.
That's gorgeous.
So I'll try and speak slower.
Anyway, so and on Spotify, Molly Wilkinson says, really great episode. This is on last week, The Morning Shed. Thanks for bringing up the environmental aspect. And then Gussie Orelli says, why have you put this one in?
Because it's funny.
I'm so embarrassed.
Go on, say it.
In the next episode, could we please have a type 15 about sleep vaping? Just dropping it in there and immediately moving on was too cruel. Well, maybe we'll do it as
a secret mini episode.
Subscriber mini episode, yeah. Why not, eh?
We should do an ASMR one that's just you like ripping fat vapes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. What are we talking about today, Ione?
Today we are talking about the absolute fuckery of the British government and why we hate them, and the fact that they are cutting disability benefit for loads of people and they're just being nasty.
Right, what disability benefit do they cut in?
Well, they're changing loads of them. So the main one that everyone's talking about is PIP, which stands for Personal Independent Payment. And what are they cutting about it, G?
They're changing the rules on how you can get it, as well as the way that how much it is as well. So currently you can get it's split into two factions. So there's mobility and life. So you can get a payment that will help you be mobile, essentially. So that could be anything from get a lift to get out of bed, or like a carer to come around to like help you get out of bed and stuff like that, or even to having an accessible car, to having even just paying for taxis to cut about town in.
Even just having a car, I think it's been going off on Twitter because alt-righty or just contrarian, annoying people have been like, oh, if you're disabled, you just get a car for free. Obviously that's not fucking true, because it's actually really hard to get personal independence payment.
And it's scalable as well. You don't just apply, you get it, and you're getting the same as everyone else. You get there's a lowest amount, which is I think £28.70 a week, and then it can go up to £184.30 a week, which is also still fuck all money. The whole point of PIP was to be supplementary to other incomes as well, or other benefits that you can claim. Mm-hmm. So it's specifically for people who need it because of their health. And then the new rules that they're trying to apply are going to change the criteria to qualify for payment, so they're making it a lot harder to get payment. And then on top of that, they're cutting the amount of money that you can get. I think it's going from £97 to £50
a week.
And
then they're also basically changing. So there's that, which is personal independent payment, which isn't related to capacity to work, basically. And then there's universal credit, which is unemployment benefit, basically. And that was already changed. So pre-lockdown, it wasn't universal credit, was it?
I think it was a bit before that it changed over to universal credit when I was on the dole. It was just before they introduced it.
Yeah.
And my brother, who works with a lot of people who are on benefits and use benefits, at the time he was do not let them put you on universal credit, because the way that it works is they just give you a fixed income for everything. They don't prior to that, they used to just used to pay your rent separately and then give you an amount to live on. And then they brought it all under one roof, you just get one payment to pay for all these different things. And then they made it so that PIP was supplementary to that if you did have a health condition.
So universal credit at the moment, anyone can get a standard universal credit rate for being out of work. So at the moment, the standard is £91 a week. But then if you are disabled or have a health condition, you can get like a health top up, which means that you're like eligible for extra money. It used to be 90, like another 97 on top, and they're slashing that to £50 a week.
So just across the board, like the people who are being targeted with these cuts are people who are accessing benefits for their health and not necessarily like work, like being out of work, even though obviously those two things are so linked.
I don't think they are so linked. What do you mean?
Well, I think it's harder to get work if you have certain health needs.
I think it's very complex and layered in terms of like how we approach disability in the workplace. So what I think is so disappointing about these new reforms from Labour is that it's all like coached in the language of like getting people back into work, basically. So they're reforming like PIP and universal credit, and like part of it is they're like on universal credit, they're changing what it means to access the health related one, basically. So you will either be kind of like graded as limited capability for work, or like limited capability for work and work related activity, and like the former means that like maybe you're poorly now but you should be able to access the workplace in the future, and the latter means that like it doesn't look like you'll be able to access the workplace at any point. But all of the language is like, yeah, we're trying to level up, we're trying to like, you know, here. This is a quote from Liz Kendall, which she's the Work and Pensions Secretary. And she said, "The government is ambitious for our people and our country, and we believe unleashing the talents of the British people is the key success to our futures." Which is obviously just bullshit. Like, I think it's difficult. I think especially if you're not disabled or you haven't experienced like a chronic health condition. Obviously, there's a lot of people that like find themselves out of work for long periods of time, like maybe due to like a mental health crisis, or maybe due to like an acute medicine condition, like something that happens to you like cancer, or like literally anything. Like obviously you can break your leg and not be able to go to work. Do you know what I mean? But I think there's like a huge disconnect of people who are non-disabled and like non-chronically ill understanding like the hidden cost of being disabled, because obviously the world is so inaccessible to disabled people. So for example, there are disabled people that are like working and in jobs, but they can't like take public transport to work because the public transport's not accessible, or all of these things basically, like the hidden cost of like maybe you have to have a heating on more because you're like temperature sensitive, even just like having to access hospitals and stuff, like the time taken out. There's so many like hidden baked things into being disabled that don't necessarily leave you unable to work, but mean that you don't assimilate in like an ableist work environment, because our current structures of work are innately ableist. And for me, this is just is absolute bullshit that a left wing in, what do you call it, bunny ears,
yeah,
absolutely despicable. Because also the reason I didn't vote for Labour personally, because Keir Starmer's a fucking twat.
Did you see that he's like very recent, like the language has changed as well around Labour? It used to be the Worker Party and now he's changed it to the Work Party. Like in all the messaging. It's so fucking... People are like, I called this from ages ago, you know, like when people bring up their like Nosferatu tweets, not Nosferatu, what's it called? Nostradamus tweets.
Nosferatu.
They bring up their Nostradamus. They raise their tweets from the dead to get Keir Starmer.
The Nosferatu tweet.
The Nostradamus tweets to be like, oh, next thing they're going to do is change Labour to the fucking Work Party, because it just sounds so ridiculous at the time, like, like 2 or 3 years ago. Like, imagine if they just completely changed the language around it from worker, like for the workers, for workers' rights, to help the working class, to the Work Party being like, we're the people who want to work, like make it the capitalism party. And he has.
Yeah, but it's giving in COVID when, what's the political satire drama with Peter Capaldi in it?
I had it then and then I lost it.
Well, when everyone was like, oh, just another episode of whatever that show's called. I'm sure this is compelling listening.
It's The Thick of It.
The Thick of It. Or Veep, yeah. I think Veep. Sorry, Siam just said Veep. Yeah, when everyone was like, oh, we're living for an episode of The Thick of It. It's like, like, I understand using humour to cope with bad situations, but it's so disgusting that like literally all we've seen Labour do is crack down on like some of the most marginalised people in society. So like they scrap the winter fuel allowance for elderly people. Obviously, like there's an argument to be made that elderly people should have means-tested benefits because loads of them are fucking rich. But anyway, B, disabled people. And then there was a C, but I can't remember what it is. But my husband works in the charity sector, and they're getting loads of cuts through the new Labour government as well. And then they've scrapped the NHS England, which is like the bureaucratic system that deals with the NHS, that has left loads of people out of jobs. And now they're scrapping all money to disabled people, basically.
Yeah, and they're framing it through this lens of being like, we want to help people, we want to make it easier for people to, we're going to reinvest this money into like workshops that'll, but
yeah, it's like disabled people will get one-on-one like counselling or training sessions to speak about their goals and ambitions like beyond work, and it's like, that is so fucking patronising. What, you think like a disabled person doesn't have the capacity or capability to like dream dreams? Like, it's so baffling. Like, this attitude that is held by the political class, and it's been held by the political class essentially all our lives. Like, it came in, well, the first time we lived through it was New Labour, so that's the only time we know about it. But like, it's been the predominant, I feel like it's been the predominant political thought in this country since we were born, which was like, not enough people work, let's get everyone into work, everyone should be like ambitious and thriving and doing this. And it's just ignores that the world is not set up for people to be able to work.
It's really powerful, Ione. I think we should take a break.
Fuck off. Why are you saying it like that?
No, let everyone have a second to digest.
Hello, why am I back? We never say it.
Because I just pulled the break out. We'll take turns.
So there is an article that Dazed did. Let me just get it up, which I think put it into perspective really well, because it's by James Greg? How Labour's benefit cuts will impact disabled artists. I think a lot of the time as well, when we're talking about benefit cuts of any type, if you haven't relied on those benefit cuts or tried to exist within those systems, it's really hard to understand like how impactful or unimpactful they were. And it's definitely worth noting that PIP wasn't this like utopian vision of a disability benefit in its current form. It's like notoriously very difficult to get PIP. Like, there's endless stories of like people being on, what's the machine, nebulizers. Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, nebulizer.
Or like people having like triple heart attacks, people with like extreme COPD who have lung failure that are literally doing their PIP assessments from their hospital bed, don't get PIP, and then like die 4 days later because that's how ill they are. I applied for PIP myself when I was first diagnosed in 2016 or 15, I guess, I can't remember, but I didn't get it. And also they make it so difficult for, basically the goalpost is constantly changing, I think, for disabled people to either be like too sick or not sick enough. So like, for example, with my PIP assessment, they made me go all the way to Haywards Heath to, no, not even Hastings, which is like a coastal city 3 hours from London, when specifically with my illness, it's like you can't travel for long on public transport in case you have the need for a bathroom, fatigue, all of these things. So part of the test is that if you get yourself there, you're too well to go on the benefit.
It's a fucking joke. It's so like the Hunger Games, isn't it?
And they make you like stand up and like stretch your arm and like all of these like really demeaning things and like talking like very in depth. And obviously cutting disability benefit is eugenicist, because we're trying to just like, despite what Labour say and despite the fact that they're saying like get these people into work, we actually want disabled people to remain invisible in society, because it like doesn't serve a new Labour neoliberal narrative that some people can't work to the same way as everyone else. Like, some people need to be self-employed, some people need to work from home, some people can only work part-time, and none of that serves them. Like, the only thing that serves them is if you can get up and go and do a 9 to 5.
Yeah, literally. And I think that it, like, the assessments themselves are changing as well. They're like, we're going to make it more strict. And I think that reading about it, like the way that it's lowered down to like a point system, like who can score the most points means that you can be the most disabled person who deserves the most thing. And it becomes like this needing to earn like narrative, like your right to be even classified as like enough to earn PIP. I thought it was really interesting. Someone did a tweet thread where they break down how the scoring works. So it says in the new reform that applicants will now need to score at least 4 points in one daily living activity to qualify for the daily living element. So that's the part where it like benefit them, part of the benefit where it benefits you specifically to pay for other things, so like carers and stuff like that, or even like small things like say that you need like an electronic tin opener. So then this person, Katie Pennick's broken it down. So she says, Labour wants to scrap PIP for those with lower needs, scoring 3 or less for each activity. Let's look at what that means. So do you need someone to lift you in and out of the shower? That's 3 points. Need someone to dress your lower body and put on your pants and trousers? 2 points. Can't cook a simple meal using a cooker, only able to use a microwave? That's 2 points. Need assistance from someone to manage therapy for less than 3.5 hours a week? 3 points. Use an aid or appliance to speak? 2 points. Like, just the systems of applying points to these different things that will affect individuals in different ways, also based on like the help they have around them, all these other like different factors that are so individualistic, and then turn it into a point system is just so backwards.
I also think that's just how our country works now. Like, even like the NHS, for example, like the referral systems, everyone's always thinking about like cost cutting because everything's such like a bureaucratic middle management system that they're just trying to cost cut. And the whole point of Labour is that they should be taxing high earners higher. That's the whole point of the Labour Party, but they're doing exactly what the opposite is. And I think something that helped put it in perspective was on that day's article, our Dollhouse member, Abby Palmer, who is an artist that I know personally, kind of like did a little interview with them, where Abby said, I do find PIP really helpful. I wish there was more of it, but it's the difference between me being able to have a working life at all or me just being completely dependent on everyone around me and having a very miserable and unwell life. And then this is James writing. Abby uses PIP to pay for regular physiotherapy, which the NHS doesn't provide. As someone with an ongoing physical disability, this makes it easier for her to recover from the demands of working, including sitting up straight and activity which causes her pain. It's not a miracle, this is in quotes, it's not a miracle cure, but it does take some of the pressure off my body, she says. She also puts the money towards compression garments, mobility aids, and her considerable travel costs. The lift at her nearest tube station has been broken for a year, which means she can't get to work if she doesn't take a taxi. It allows her to afford an accessible studio with ground level access, although this is only accessible up to a point with no heating or hot water. We used to be in the same studio, so I know that is true. She's unable to use it for 4 months out of the year. If I didn't have PIP, it would be too expensive for me to do my job. And that's the thing. It's not like people are like miraculously getting handouts for being like disabled or like getting a bad lot in life or whatever. Like, these are benefits that help people access their lives, and like by removing them, you're essentially saying that disabled and chronically ill people do not deserve any sort of quality of life. And I feel like that's just the way this country is going with this government and past governments. Like, obviously it's not just on Labour, but like, why are we so determined for everyone in the UK to be absolutely miserable?
I also think like reading through like Abby and like there's like so many quotes in this research. See, I've done a really great job of compiling so many different points of view on it, and the overwhelming statement is like the world is so inaccessible as well. Like, why is that lift broken? Why is there no like hot water needs to be like a demand
because they're not
buildings?
Investing in public resources.
Why does like there's all these different things that like are part of it that you're like, well, if that was fixed, then yeah, people would need less benefit. Like if the public transport system was accessible, it would make it so much better. I mean, that people wouldn't need the PIP to pay for taxis or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it's just so like, and I really doubt that these cuts are going to go into reinvesting in that. It's going to go into getting the training, like somewhere at the benefits office to have like one-on-one sessions with people
where they talk about like, oh, I'd love to be able, like, where would you love to work? Like, so patronizing as well.
Yeah, they'll have like a script of like, how can we help you get to where you need to be? And they're like, well, I could do it myself before you made these cuts and threw me in these fucking sessions, mate.
Exactly, like, especially disabled and chronically ill people, and I'm sure like other people across marginalizations, because the workforce, like the reason why I quit like the workforce and tried to do polyester properly was because it was like a completely inaccessible environment for me to be in. And so then we have like disabled, chronically ill and other marginalized people that are essentially trying to build their own vision of like a utopian workforce. Like, I know people are going to be like, no one dreams of Labour, but like, trying to build like working lives that suit them and therefore are more accessible across the board, because like accessibility requirements will never disable a able-bodied person. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's never going to happen. And instead we're having these cut back. And like even Labour going after small businesses instead of big corporations. Like, we're getting attacked at every space, basically.
Yeah, it's like you said, they want it to be invisible. They want... it's not too far of a reach, I think, to be like, they just want everyone trapped in their houses that aren't suiting the vision that they want for the public-facing world.
Well, no, exactly, because like even not us, but like we know physically disabled people that are like forced to remain in the workforce because they can't access PIP, or we know like disabled people that have been rushed into A&E and been like, what's the word, pressured to sign a do not resuscitate, even though there's no reason for them to sign a do not resuscitate, because the government don't want the financial liability of actually looking after these people. And what is a Labour government if it's not a government that looks after people?
Exactly. It's and there's so many things where they've like just reneged on their like pledges that people were voting for to get them in, and it's so obvious to me that they're gonna lose the next election.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're going to be back to the Tories, and like everything is just like brick by brick setting up for this country to be the most miserable place.
Yeah,
and also like not to say that other countries don't suffer, because we know that like America and like many other non-Western countries are going through shit shows at the moment. But it does also show that even though we have this left-wing government, we're curving to fascism, to the right, to eugenics, to a world that is like openly hostile to anyone that is marginalised in any sort of way. And the thing is, even if you are not disabled now, at any point you can have an event which makes you disabled in your life.
Well, I saw there was a good quote in the research where someone said it's not a case of if you become disabled, it's a when.
But also, I don't find issue with that quote because I think it's true. But then I also think that like, as humans, we should be able to develop empathy outside of our own experience. Like, we should care about these things, even if they don't directly affect us, because they do affect us and they affect the world we live in, and they affect, you know, like how enjoyable this life is for everyone around us.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think with these Labour politicians making these decisions, they're so out of touch with the people that it will actually affect. Like, they see PIP as like a supplementary income that can be added to people's like
they're all like fiddling their benefits,
because they're all so rich. They're making so much money on their claimants and stuff.
Yeah, they're getting like second houses in London and then like keeping their third houses in their constituencies and like
renting them out. And then they also
so like that thing that Keir Starmer did where he's like sent his kid to like a fucking mansion to revise for his GCSEs because there's too many paparazzi outside his house or whatever.
Yeah, and then claiming it back on the taxpayers' dime.
Exactly. Also, it's always like disabled, it's always marginalised people that actually pay their tax. Do you know what I mean? And like believe in the tax system and believe in like all of this. And it's always the people that aren't, that abuse it and manipulate it and don't pay their taxes and have private healthcare. So don't rely on public services in any way. Like, Keir Starmer's not getting the bus, is he?
No, he's literally going to be like Lucille Bluth in Arrested Development, being like, how much can a banana be? 10 quid. And it's going to be soon.
I think they literally did that with him in his British Vogue interview, like, to try and make him seem real. Like, had him, like, picking up a pint of milk.
Oh, that's so
from Sainsbury's.
Sainsbury's posh, anyway.
Exactly. They're trying to undo that. Have you seen their adverts?
No.
It's like a family pulling up to Sainsbury's and then one of them's like, Sainsbury's, you think we're made of money? They're like, well, actually.
That's like what Waitrose do as well, isn't it? Like, yeah, but we got chicken thighs for £4. I also think something that really stood out for me, and it's something that happens again and again with benefits in this country, is the exclusion of people who are younger. So they've made it now.
Scrapping onto 22.
Anyone under 22 is such a fucking arbitrary age as well. Like, it used to be 21. Before that, it was 18. Before it was 16. And I was like, yeah, those were...
I don't think that's an arbitrary age because it's the age that people will finish their BAs and, like, are likely to find themselves in unemployment.
Oh.
So then they're just, like, cutting that service access to, like, a lot of people that will be between jobs or looking for work.
But I think in part of the research as well, they were like, they're kicking off because over 106,000 young people aged 18 to 21 are claiming the health element of universal credit, according to most recent government data. That's fuck all people. I'm sorry, there's probably like 106,000 people living on my street.
That's
so many
crazy.
high rises
no
and
way.
stuff. Yeah, if you took it all the way down to Peckham, there's so many high rises and that. There's so many people that like they throw out these large numbers to be like, wow, over 100,000 people. That's so many people when you think of like that filling a stadium or whatever. Yeah, sure. When you think of the population of the UK, it's like 0.01% of people are fiddling their benefits. Let them. Do you think the fucking say like you wouldn't shut down? Say I opened a boutique next week, and every 1,000 purchases, one person nicked a chocolate bar. I'm not going to shut down the shop.
Yeah, but that's what Labour want you to think. Like, have you watched morning television recently where it's like they go into the local co-op and they're like, oh, it's terrible. We've had like 30 bottles of Glen's vodka stolen this week. And it's like, what does that mean to you, Tesco? Nothing.
Just nick from big corporations, you heard it first.
And it does trickle down because I was mistreated very poorly at Disneyland last year.
Do you want to explain what happened?
So, I mean, it's bad to go to Disneyland anyway, though.
Yeah, but it's bad what they've done to you.
No, I just think like we're seeing such a rollback of like disabled people being able to access services, and it's under the assumption that there's like an overdiagnosis. Like there's a bit in this research here where it's like, oh, they're cutting back benefits for people with mental health problems.
Oh, I've got it.
Because there's like an overdiagnosis problem.
Wes Streeton said there's an overdiagnosis of mental distress, and then the chief executive of Mind, which is a mental health charity in the UK, Sarah Hughes, said mental health problems are not a choice but is a political choice to make it harder for people to access the support they need to live with dignity and independence. And I think that's a huge part of it as well. The dignity of it is just being robbed from people. It's like,
well, no, exactly. So at Disney,
this is what happened to you.
I found out about like disability access services at Disney. So when we went like 3 years ago or whatever, I literally could go up to someone and be like, oh, I'd like to access the disability access service. And they'd be like, oh, why? And I'd be like, oh, I have Crohn's disease. And they'd be like, okay, cool. And they'd
be like trained on what that is.
Yeah.
And be like, okay,
and they'd
fine.
add it to my app or whatever, and then go about my day, have a great day.
And like you also add on like the people you're with, so it's just like you don't have to go around on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And then they've changed it since I last went. This is so annoying. I'm not a Disney adult, I promise. Gina was with me at all times of this, by the way. So they make you like go before you get in, so you have to buy tickets, you have to go to the park, you have to go to a specific hut queue, which is part of the reason why you need DAS in the first place, if you can't queue. Not me saying DAS.
She knows the Disney adult lingo. Go on, you were trying to get your DAS.
I was trying to get my DAS. And then you go up to the thing and they're like, they ask you the same question, like, oh, what are you trying to access today? Disability access service. Why? Because I Crohn's. And then they're like, well, it's actually changed since you were last here. So I'm going to have a conversation with you and whether you get awarded it. The word awarded is so bad as well.
It's the same with the point system though. Like it's turned into the gamification of how...
having a disability.
Yeah, literally.
Like, based on this discussion is whether you'll get it or not. And then they asked me, like, such invasive questions, basically, about, like, why I didn't feel like I could queue, or, like, how my disability impacts me in every day-to-day life, like, how my work life is impacted, how I have had to adapt my life to, adapt around my disability. And then I got rejected for it. And they were like, you don't have, like, what you can do is you can sit at the entrance to a ride while all your mates queue, and then when they're at the front of the ride, you can join them.
They'll just come and grab it.
Me? What? You think I'm going to sit outside, like, imagine by myself for 2 hours? And, again, it's just all about money because they want people to buy the Disney, like, lightning lane thing.
It always boils down to the bloody capitalism of it, doesn't it?
And, yeah, it's my point, circling back, is that we see disabled people as like, or no, we don't even see disabled people as like any sort of majority that are conning people, but we see benefits as something that people will lie about to get them. Like we think people will lie so they can cut the queue at Disney. We think people will lie so they can get money, they can get PIP. And yeah, it's like, okay, if 3 people lie, but you help 200 people, then why does it fucking matter?
I also think it's just... like, anytime I've ever encountered it, most people who are, most people who have a disability are underplaying it at all times. Like, they're not lying about it. The only thing they're lying about is how severe it is or how much it affects them, or like they're proper like downplaying the impact of it on their life, and then like using that language around it is like, well, no, I want to be a bit more like, I don't want to tell people the honesty of like what I'm going through, because they'll just think that I'm exaggerating it because it's so unbelievable harsh for me.
Exactly. And you shouldn't have to wheel out your biggest trauma just to access things. Like, obviously, for some things, yeah, for benefits, people need to understand how your life is impacted by these things to understand why you need them. But it so often feels like you're in like a war about it, or like you're having to prove yourself rather than someone's actually taking the time to understand your needs and requirements.
And it's just so evil to have someone tell a trained worker, and probably like on the government's version of trained worker, all these things, and then have that person turn around and write, yeah, 3 points for that. Yeah, okay, right. Well, that would be 2 points actually. But if you tell me, and they do play it like this way, they'd be like, but if you tell me that this happens to you instead, every fourth day you piss yourself, if you tell me something like that, then I can make it 3 points for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like I think it's so...
And that's if you get a nice person that is like, say this, say that.
Yeah.
Not say this, say that, but you know what I mean? Like someone that's
guides
helping
you through the process
yeah.
of like a bureaucratic system that's set up to make people fail and to diminish them. Like, if you don't pass that test to be able to be awarded the PIP that you deserve, you're riddled with self-doubt after that, being like, well, actually, am I that disabled? Do I actually need this help? Like, it affects you so much more mentally when people are framing your needs as a choice.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also it's really hard because it can feel like monumental to push against governments, but obviously we should all be being vocal about this and not. But I think one of the most important takeaways that listeners and like our community to take on board is just to like look after each other and look out for each other and like never see each other as the enemy, because that's how governments get away with doing this type of thing.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting in the research where someone pointed out that like the disability access on buses was won in the 50s because loads of people in wheelchairs chained themselves to buses until it became the law that they had to be able to, and even then, like, the bus's fucking accessibility for wheelchair users is dog shit. Like, but I think it proves the point that like we actually do need to fight for these things to get them to happen, rather than like just and like talk about them and be honest about them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think protest is an important part of the system, but I think it's easy to feel hopeless, especially if you're in the situation of being impacted by these cuts. So I think it's even more important for people that aren't affected to look out for the people around them as well.
Definitely. I think it needs to be everyone fighting for this.
Definitely. And with that, we have to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Ione.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you to Siham. It is her last episode.
Thank you, Siham, for this brilliant year together.
We will miss you. Thank you to Olivia for the sound tech. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.